Hello readers, I'm Amy and I'm your nonfiction feminist. Today I'm going to talk to you about Sparrow by Sarah Moon. This is the group book for Mentalhealth-athon, and in reviewing this book I'm also going to be talking a lot about my personal experiences with anxiety and how this book affected me and how much I loved it. This is an amazing book. I highly recommend this book for anyone who's currently struggling, for anyone who has previously struggled with anxiety and depression and not being able to speak up for yourself. In this review, I will be discussing premise, plot, world building, and character. And to start off, Sparrow, our main character, was found on the roof of her school, and everyone assumes that she was trying to commit suicide. That is not the case, but no one knows what the case really is because Sparrow won't speak about it, and the more people try to get her to speak up for herself, the less she wants to, the more she goes into herself. For the plot, we start off... For the plot of this book, we start off meeting Sparrow in the mental hospital. I'm actually assuming it might just be a regular hospital. She's hooked up to an IV and she doesn't know what's going on. She just knows that she's in trouble for supposedly attempting to jump off the roof of her school. In order to be released from the hospital, she has to agree to go to therapy, which she does, and we see her throughout the book struggling to speak up for herself, whether to her therapist, to her mother, speaking up for herself in the school. It's really hard for her. She's a very quiet person, much like myself, not only growing up, but now as well. In this book, Sparrow thinks that she's crazy, and she thinks that everyone will think that she's crazy if she tells them what really happened on the roof of the school. Basically, what happens is that she checks out. She checks out completely. She has a thing for birds, much like her name, Sparrow, and she will look at a bird outside the window and she will fly off with it. This isn't a superpower story, she's not literally flying, but her way of checking out of her current environment is to fly with the birds in her mind. Teachers say that she's not participating in class, she's not present in class, she's not getting her homework done, and no one knows why. No one knows what's going on with her. And this whole book, the plot of the book, is going on this journey with Sparrow through her therapy and through her journey to find her voice. And it was so good and so well done. Almost every chapter starts off with a therapy session, and you see kind of those little baby steps that she's taking with her therapist in trying to communicate with her therapist and trying to tell her therapist what's going on, assuming that her therapist is going to think that she's crazy and put her in a mental hospital if she tells her what's wrong. And I totally relate to this. I've taken therapy before, I'm in therapy currently. It's hard to feel comfortable speaking to this total stranger, but at the same time you do need someone who's not personally involved in your current situation. And with my current therapist, she was one of those, the second I saw her, I knew, and I was comfortable. And when I first started therapy, I never thought I would ever go to therapy again. I was in college, I was lonely, I was anxious, and we had 10 free sessions at the counseling center. And the whole time, this guy is just staring at me, waiting for me to speak. And that's not the way to do therapy. If you're going to be a therapist, you need to ask your clients questions. You need to help lead the conversation because they won't always do it for you. And that's pretty lazy therapy, if you ask me. Sparrow goes in, and this therapist is trying. She's prompting her, she's asking her questions, and Sparrow is just sitting there totally silent because it is hard to speak up. But that therapist was a good therapist, and she was written really well. As for the world building of this book, It was so powerful. You see it through the character and through the plot, where you're very much in Sparrow's head, and she feels all of this pressure to tell people what happened. And the more people want her to talk about what happened, the harder they try, the more she just shuts down and goes into her shell. And that is her world. Her world is silent and pressurized, and she doesn't know what's wrong, and a lot of times she's not present in her world, and you take off with the birds with her. And that is some really powerful world building. I totally relate to this world building. I feel the pressure. I've shut down many times before. I still shut down with my anxiety. I get where this character is coming from. A lot of the times, whenever Sparrow is talking with her therapist about her anxiety, or being told that she has to speak up, she's so angry. And I get that. My anxiety makes me angry. If I go someplace that I'm uncomfortable with, if I'm around a bunch of people, or I feel like I'm not getting a chance to speak up for myself, or I'm feeling alone, or whatever it is that is making me anxious, I will get angry. And that's not the way to cope with my anxiety. That's not the way to treat the people around me. But that's what happens. And because of that, another part of the world building that was really hard for me to watch, but that I so connected with, was that Sparrow doesn't have friends. She doesn't get to have friends. She is quiet. She doesn't speak up for herself. The kids don't relate to her. They don't know why she's quiet. They think she's just stuck up. And I get that. I have dealt with so many friendship problems. My husband and I both have had friendship problems. And we each want so badly to hang out with our friends, to be with people, to be social. And for whatever reason, we're pushed away. People don't text us back. They don't talk to us unless they need something. There are people that Sparrow meets in this book who tell her that they were used for what they could give to others, and then they were just tossed away until the next time that they were needed. And as for having friends in general, I've dealt with a lot of stuff lately. And I think a lot of it is because of my anxiety. My friends in the past have not known what to do with that. Most of my friends have just disappeared from my life. They don't know how to cope with my anxiety and the way that I deal with it. And this is something that Sparrow deals with at some point in the book. There is a girl who says she wants to be friends with her because no one understands her love for reading, her love of books. But the friendship has to be secret because her other friends just won't understand. And that's a moment in the book where I'm like, oh gosh, I hope this is going to turn out okay. Like, don't do it, don't be friends with this person. And it's also a real teaching moment for Sparrow. And reading that and seeing what she does with that was awesome. This is moving into the character side of this review, really. I connected with Sparrow. I've been Sparrow before, and some days I'm still Sparrow. I don't want to speak up for myself. I don't want to stand up for myself because sometimes it's just too exhausting and it's just too hard. It takes a long time in the book, but Sparrow finds her people like I'm starting to find mine again. After these last couple months, I'm really finally starting to trust people, and I'm getting to know people through this channel and in my personal life that understand where I'm coming from, and maybe, just maybe, they're not going anywhere. And maybe I can start to trust those relationships again. And I get Sparrow, and Sparrow gets me, and it's not often that I can connect to a character in this way, that I can connect to a book in this way. So, thank you to the creators of the Mentalhealth-athon for bringing this book into my life. I've loved every second of it, and it's awesome. As for the rest of the characters, the therapist is amazing. She seems like a really cool person. Sparrow notes her funky outfits all the time. She wears a different pair of sneakers to every therapy session. And she just seems like a really cool person. She's like, I know you. I know what you're about. Like, don't you lie to me. You haven't talked to anyone. You're nervous. Like, here's what's happening. Here's where you're going when you're flying. And she encourages Sparrow to bring her mother into her therapy. And we see the mom who is kind of disconnecting from Sparrow, who doesn't get what's going on, who doesn't know how to help her, and just kind of shuts down herself. And then through the therapy and the growth of Sparrow's character, we see who her mom really is. And we get to know what her mom was like growing up, and maybe where some of this social anxiety that Sparrow deals with is coming from. And towards the end of the book, Sparrow comes across a pretty great opportunity. And nervous as she is, she has a chance to get to know people. And getting to know the people that she meets at the end of this book was another great adventure where, again, she doesn't want to speak up. She has to learn to even just say hello and introduce pieces of herself. Those other people eventually really start to connect with that and be like, oh, you're giving me something? Well, I'm going to give you something back. Let's get to know each other. Overall, this book was amazing. And I don't read a lot of young adult books. I've said that before, but this is a young adult book that is close to my heart, that I am definitely going to be rereading, that I want to bring back into my life in those tough moments to remind myself of where I've been and where I can go from here. So if you're not participating in Mentalhealth-athon already, please do. It's still not too late to start. There are so many amazing books out there that you could connect with. And even if you're not dealing with mental illness of your own, maybe you can learn about others' experiences and how they're feeling, and how you can be a person who's more aware of those feelings, how you can maybe better connect to some of the people in your life who are dealing with some of this stuff. So those are my thoughts on Sparrow, and please read this book, especially if you're like me and you deal with anxiety and friendship issues and relationship issues and you just need someone who understands. Because Sparrow, she understands. She gets it. As usual, please like, subscribe, and please be my friend or be my peer or be my commenter on my channel and introduce yourself. Let me know who you are, and maybe we can get to know each other. Have a great day, guys.